we're going to talk about human-centered design and change management. What I just did with you was demonstrated a way that we can play with these digital tools. And what it does for me as a facilitator is it gives me a visual representation of where you might be at in terms of your affiliation with this content. So as Tamara said, you are going to have to be kind with me because I have taken a whole big bunch of information and I've squeezed it down into a small little box as big as the boxes that we're in right now. So we're just going to do our best to make this meaningful and participatory. And please feel free, as Wadan just demonstrated, to interrupt me at any time that you have something to say or share, because again, this is about us co-creating this community together. So everyone okay with that? Can I get some, this is applause in sign language. That's another thing that I've been trying to learn is some sign language so that we can make this more fun and interactive. So without further ado, I believe I'm supposed to talk about change management, and sorry that I don't have the exact template here, but we'll just do our best. So who wants to give me a definition of change management? Not you, Vladan, because I know what you're gonna say. Who else? What about my other Tamara? Hi, other Tamara, I see you.
Change management is about humans and the human hearts and how they're perceiving this world. It is at the core of everything.
You gave it away. Way to give away the punchline, my friend. Okay, moving on. We already went through these virtual environment agreements here. What I want to do is actually take a quick moment to talk about change management, and then I'm going to go back to this activity. So a definition of change management is that it's a discipline that guides how we prepare, equip, and support individuals to successfully adopt change in order to drive organizational success and outcomes. In a perfect scenario, right? This does not include change that we were completely unprepared for, such as a global pandemic. The idea here, though, is that we're starting with individuals, because individuals make up our organizations, they make up our institutions. In our breakout room, we had a conversation about how we even engage in managing change, how we engage in design when we're so overwhelmed with the world that's happening around us and the things that we can't control. So this is really about putting together some frameworks to embrace change, to help organizations be proactive instead of reactive. And we know that change is difficult, but it's also necessary. So I'm gonna stop sharing real quick, and I'm going to ask you to take a piece of paper. We remember paper, right? Paper and pen, even though we're in this digital world, right? And I want you to sign your name 5 times, okay? We're good? Dragana, is that how you say your name? You're good? You got it? Got your paper? Okay. All right. Demas, are you gonna play? Excellent. All right, so when I say sign your name 5 times, ready? Go.
Can I use stamp?
No. Follow directions, Vladan. Come on, we have such precious little time together. Okay, so hold it up. You got it? Milosh, you got it? Dara, great, excellent. Okay, thank you. Now, I want to say a quick caveat that some folks are able to write with their other hand, with their non-dominant hand, okay? So if you are that person, just don't give away the secret here. But now I want you to sign your name 5 times with your non-dominant hand, okay? Demas?
Yeah.
All right, 5 times your non-dominant hand. Ladon, are you doing it? I can't hear your voice. Find your voice.
Can you repeat? I have some interruption here. What is the task?
Levom rukom. Potpiši se levom rukom 5 puta.
Thank you. I like that in real-time translation, Dragana. That is very helpful for me. Okay. Did we do it?
No, we didn't.
Oh.
Look at that. Okay.
In Egyptian letters.
Hieroglyphics, Rosie, you got it. All right, last time, sign your name 5 more times. Ready? Go, sign your name 5 more times. Don't ask any questions, just do it. Come on, Goran, stop smiling. You look too happy.
No, I'm imagining Rosalinda walking like Egyptian because she says it's, you know, this famous song from Bengals. So I just like.
From the Bengals, yes, very good.
Like, but you know, where Rosie is, there's the music and fun.
I wish my name was Anna or something like a bit shorter.
All right, let's see it. Okay, so we signed our name 5 times. Thank you, Vladan. Beautiful. And then we signed our name 5 more times with our non-dominant hand. And then I invited you to sign your name again. Who used their non-dominant hand? Raise your hand. You did? You did down there? I can't see your name, but
They simply didn't understand.
excellent. So tell me why you used your non-dominant hand. Who is that? What is her name? I can't see her name there. I invite you to come off mute and share. Thank you. There you are. I can't see your name. Okay. So who used their dominant hand? Okay, Anna, why did you do that? Can you come off mute and share?
I just thought that change of hands should, will impact how we will write with the dominant hand. If you start to use that we have a change in but I didn't have any change in the way that I write my name with the dominant hand.
You didn't have a change in
No.
how you wrote? All right.
No,
So
I
you-
was just a bit more messy because I was in a hurry. But
Right,
mostly
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, someone else. Why did you use your dominant hand?
For
It's
me,
easier, it's faster.
yeah, for me it was a reflex. Like when you said that we should write our names again, I immediately went for the dominant hand.
And why would you do that, Amina?
I don't know, it's just, I feel like I would write my name better with my dominant hand.
Yeah, okay. Because it was automatic. You didn't even have to think about it. Because I asked you to do something that was different, and it may have felt difficult, and it may have felt awkward, and it may not have produced the same sort of outcome you would have wanted. So you immediately changed back to writing with your dominant hand. So what does this mean for managing change? What does this mean for how humans interact with change?
Comfort zones, doing
Comfort
zones, and
yeah.
doing most of the things automatic without maybe thinking and conscious, but just, doing by default.
That's right. Anyone
I'm not
else?
speaking now about open by default. I know Rosalinda would like it, open data. No. It's behavior.
Yeah, what we're talking about. Thank you, Goran. Anyone else? Demas.
Yeah.
I think that the change is not
Yes.
something that we welcome, that, instantly, that we need to adapt to changes. It's not something that it's really natural to us. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Demas.
Also, the way we know how to do things is efficient. So we can do it faster. It's easy to go back to the state of change. You need, there's a practice and there's a learning and you don't get to perfection unless you've done this lots of times and for a certain period. If you don't persist for that period, then you just go back and do it the easy way.
That's right. It takes reinforcement. Once we are presented with a change, those behaviors that we adopt have to be reinforced. The other thing that we know is that this lives in our bodies, right? We didn't even think about which hand we were going to use on that last one. We just did it. It's our muscle memory. It's what feels comfortable. I'm also going to mention that Selma says it means that it's hard to open up for changes. Thank you for sharing that.
May I add?
Yes, you
Yeah.
may.
Actually, you didn't explain us why we should write with the left hand.
Right.
So we changed to the right hand.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And why didn't I tell you that though?
Well, you will explain it later, I hope.
To demonstrate a point, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't give you the instruction, you went with what was most comfortable, with what you're used to doing, with what is easiest, right? So this is just a short demonstration when you're working with your teams, when you're talking about adapting to change, that these are natural behaviors. There's a psychosomatic element here, and that we're able to understand how change affects our bodies, right? So I just wanted to start us off with that. Any other reflections or comments from that exercise anyone would like to share?
Yeah.
Hey. Hi, friend. I'm putting you on mute because I don't think you're actually talking to us. Okay, let's go back to our screen and talk about why having frameworks for change management are important. In fact, I actually really loved what Nautica shared about the taking care of people and crisis management. It also might be worth noting that where I come from, I realize I didn't even really mention that at all, but my background is in public administration. I've taught many different public administration courses in a variety of different settings. And I work with local governments, mostly municipalities and some state agencies, of course, which is how I am connected to Tamara Szerzentich, on integrating more creative collaborative processes into the work. So I wanted to just kind of talk about that for a little bit. But another thing is that we talk about change management, and my friend Vladan earlier was talking about management in terms of the managers, right? I heard him talk about maybe management isn't on board, but change management is this set of tools, models, and resources designed to further a change effort. So it gives us an infrastructure to support how we want to do change. So this time last year, when I was in Montenegro with some of you, and we were talking about digital transformation, it takes on a whole different, we're in a whole new world now, right? Just like we were seeing on the slides that were shared earlier about the CEO, CTO, COVID-19, right, that Vanya shared. So now we want to move from managing change to really leading change. And even if we're not the management within an organization, we can be leading change by the actions and the behaviors that we are reinforcing within our institutions. So change leadership as opposed to change management includes broader visions. We're actually caring about and talking about emotions so that we can understand what motivates and empowers the people around us. So I wanted to add these traits of a change leader here. We have communication, ability to inspire others, enthusiasm, emotional intelligence and empathy, strategic thinking, forward thinking, decisiveness, confidence, integrity, and self-improvement. Do any of those resonate with you all? Do you see any? Yep, I see a nod there, Tahana. Is there Do any of these map to your strengths finders? Does anyone see any strengths that they have on this? What about Tamara?
Empathy. So one of my top 2 strengths is empathy. So yes. And
Of
then
course.
strategic as well. Strategic and empathy.
All right, who else knows their strengths from strengths finders?
Communication.
Yeah. Communication?
Strategic thinking.
Strategic thinking. Yep. Anna, I saw you raise your hand. Thank you, Goran. Anna, did you have one to add?
Yes, strategic thinking and self-improvement. I think it's a learner, the strength on the work we did, and also forward thinking. You could also link this with the strategic and the other strengths that I saw in my assessment.
Great, good. So we're making connections here between these sorts of traits around how we lead change and what we know our individual strengths to be. Now, can we develop these strengths if we don't have them already? What do you think? Yes? Yes?
We absolutely can.
All right, beautiful. See, I'm gonna need you all to not be shy. So the other thing to say about change management is that it doesn't happen in a bubble. We want to have input and involvement from all stakeholders. Again, talking about this is a lot of talk and not so much action, which is another thing that I heard earlier. And I do want to go back to this idea of co-creation and policy making. So what does this look like in your organization or department or agency or ministry, I should say? When is there input and involvement from multiple stakeholders, if at all?
Come on, folks, don't be shy.
What do you think, Vladan?
Oh, I have much things in my head. I will say previous screen. I think communication is very important for all of this, especially in public administration. If there is no communication between employee and colleagues, you cannot finish anything.
Yep, very good. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Do you see input and involvement from multiple stakeholders? What about Milena? Are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
So what does input and involvement from multiple stakeholders look like in your world?
Well, I can speak from a civil society organization perspective. At this stage, it's a little bit too, the public sector experience is a little bit too remote for me. Basically, everything we do involves multiple stakeholders. We involve them in maybe not as much as we could or should in the design of our work. But definitely in the implementation, in terms of consultations, in terms of actual research, in terms of advocacy and presentation of the results of our work, gathering feedback. In terms of planning, to an extent, we also involve multiple stakeholders through our advisory council, where we have people from both some public sector organizations and experts and civil society experts. So yeah, they're different venues. And basically it starts from actually understanding who your stakeholders are. I mean, having them mapped well. So then you can involve them properly and find the ways that each of them can be involved and contribute.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Milena. I'm going to read from the chat here. Selma says, you can have great individuals within your organization, but if you do not have the understanding and open mind from the head or leader of the organization, you waste your time and your brain. Yep, exactly. which is what Vladon was saying earlier, right? That's why you liked her comment, because it reflected what you were saying too. And then Selma says, and you lose the enthusiasm to initiate any change to push for ideas. Yes, exactly. So these are some of the challenges. And I love what Milena was saying, and I also want to take that down to an even smaller level, right? Within our teams, within our departments, not necessarily at a multi-institutional stakeholder level, but anytime we can make decisions that involve the input from the people who we're working with that are actually going to do the work, it helps that decision-making become even stronger. We're able to actually back up those decisions that were made by data that we've collected from people. And when I talk about data, I'm talking about conversations, I'm talking about interactions, I'm talking about observations of what people are thinking, doing, and feeling within institutions. Dimas says is about minimizing disalignment rather than creating alignment. Dimas, do you want to say anything else about that?
Well, the comment is that a change leader does have to align people, stakeholders who by definition have different objectives or adjacent objectives, but you have to be aligned to a common cause. They will never be exactly aligned with the same focus, the same enthusiasm. It will be the first priority for some, the fifth priority for others. The reasons why they will, the reasons and the pace and the speed of change will be different for each one. So I'm thinking of change leaders as people who manage to, not to create harmony, but to minimize disharmony.
Yes.
So that the water, and it's more like water rather than people marching, sort of moves in the same direction.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Dimas. It makes me think about this new, we were talking about buzzwords earlier, a new phrase that I heard recently, which is toxic positivity, right? So it's putting forth this idea that everything has to always be positive. And certainly in times like these, we know that that's not the case. And we want to make space for for those, it's like the motions of, this is, sorry, it is 3 a.m. here. So, this is a chain reaction, right? We can't have positive without negative, and we can't meet people where they're at if we don't understand the full spectrum. I am appreciating, thank you, Dimas. Love toxic positivity. All right, I got thumbs up from Dimas, so I guess I'm doing pretty well, friends. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about human-centered change management. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about what we just covered? Just want to make sure all the voices are heard that want to be heard. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. So we talked a little bit about change management. What I will say about change management is that it is very flawed. And what I mean by that is most of the prevailing models of change management, quite honestly, were written from a very limited perspective about organizations that existed a couple decades ago that don't look anything like our organizations today. So most of the change management frameworks you will find, John Cotter's 8 Steps to Change Management, which is a guy from Harvard Business School who wrote about change as though it is going to be the same every time, as though it is a linear step-by-step process that doesn't interact with the breadth of dimensions that humans have, right? So what I'm offering here is taking human-centered design, which we'll talk about, and merging it with this concept of change. So change management as a discipline, it's not working. Does anyone have any good examples of a significant change happening within an organization that was not without its challenges? No? Crickets? I'm hearing crickets? Right. So we don't have good models for this. So the offer is that it's going to look different in every institution with every individual. And that means that there is no one size fits all approach, right? So I'm not here to tell you this is the way you do it, right? It's all about totally understanding the context that you're in to make change less painful. Because as we learned, it's not easy, right? It's always going to be painful, but change is still the only constant. So we have to get used to it. So the human-centered approach is about what are people doing, thinking, and feeling within institutions. It's not just we need to make this change. The example Vanya was giving earlier about a 2-year plan to move to Microsoft Teams and then suddenly having to do that, right? So this is about really understanding what are the motivations and behaviors of the individuals that make up an organization so that we can make change actually stick, so that we don't have to remind people to try signing with their non-dominant hand, right? Okay, so now we're coming to human-centered design. Who of my human-centered design experts on this call want to share their definition of human-centered design? I'm looking at Rosie, Nicola, Vladan, Ernest, Vanya. Or maybe someone who had never heard of it before. What do you think human-centered design means?
Come on, don't be shy. There's no wrong answer.
Can I try?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I unmuted because I have to be in my bedroom right now for family reasons and limitations at home. I would say that human-centered design is actually involving the perspective of the user and of the actual persons and people who will be recipients, beneficiaries, target groups of a service or a policy from the very start, and including them in the problem definition, in defining possible ways to address the problem, in designing the implementation measures. So all stages of designing a service or a policy or just anything in the public sector.
And why would that be important, Milena?
Well, first of all, I mean, for me, it comes down to the essential idea of accountability of a government. The government should be accountable to those that finance its very existence and its very operation. And if the government doesn't design what it does with a view, with those who will use it and who are financing it in mind, then it's not doing its job, in my opinion. I think it's about accountability, and it's not something that the government should done on a voluntary basis. I think that this should be the very basis of government functioning.
Yes.
And operation.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So a few things that Milena said were really important. Well, everything that she said this entire time we've been together has been really important. But what stood out to me just now was she mentioned perspective. Right? She mentioned the perspective of the beneficiaries, because I started talking to you all half an hour ago or whatever time is at this point about the difference between an expert, right? So yes, I may have been practicing this for over a decade with government. That does not mean I know anything about what Nicola's day-to-day looks like, or Anna's day-to-day looks like, or what your countries are experiencing right at this moment, right? This is about mapping expertise to lived experience. Does that make sense? So we're looking at, okay, some of us might have some letters after our names. Some of us might have a certain level, have worked several years or a few years within a certain domain. But ultimately, if we are designing something that is supposed to serve someone else, we have to understand their perspective. The other thing that Milena said was problem definition. Why would defining a problem from the perspective of someone experiencing that problem be important? Why would it be important?
I think you've shown this empathy in this list. Empathy was mentioned in the list. So in order to, as you said, one-fits-all system does not exist, or at least not seen in design thinking approach or human-centered design. In order to adjust and to contextualize, we need to understand the perspectives. We need to understand how the problem is being generated and how the ones that are piecing it feel, and what's their understanding. So that is the beauty of this, and thank you for giving us this exercise. I will remember it, even though it's so basic, like handwriting. Each of us can do it. That's the beauty of this simplicity.
Yes. And you can share it with your teams. Everything that I share with you is yours, by the way.
Thank you, Judy. Really, it's really nice to understand this beauty of easiness, how you transfer this knowledge and skills to us.
Good to hear, Garan. What I do want to say is Garan is talking about empathy. We're talking about understanding the problems from the perspectives of people who are experiencing them. And I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier about this toxic positivity, because I think this is similar. This is not just because it's the right thing to do. It's not just that it's the right thing to do to understand people's needs and figure out how to get them what they need, right? We're all in public administration or civil service because or academia or wherever we are because that's important to us. It's not just that it's the right thing to do, it's that if we don't understand the problem, we're going to solve a problem that doesn't exist. We're going to spend money, time, human resources, all of these skills that we're developing, solving a problem that doesn't really exist or that didn't have the exact kind of nuance in it that was needed to actually solve a problem. So we see this a lot in international development. Certainly from the perspective of USAID, which I can pick on because there's a lot to say about them that they could improve around, right? But it's this idea that we know what's best. So we're gonna go in and help a group of people whose lives we actually know nothing about. And sometimes these projects that can be multi-million-dollar projects just fail because they did not take into account the unique context, because they were not solving for the problem as the problem was defined by the people experiencing it. What do you think about that? Tamara, how are we doing?
You're doing amazing. You're making me think and ideate right now.
I'm making you think?
I'm like,
All right, we need a little applause for that. We've made Tamara think. Okay.
And my heart has skipped the beat too, not just here, right here too.
All right, beautiful. I'm gonna get us back into our slide deck. Thank you. You'll see that I like to, again, make this conversational and not just talking. Okay, back to human-centered design. So, right, I was like, wait, aren't I talking about a process? No, I'm just talking at this point. So human-centered design, this is a circular process, right? You see that this is circular and the arrows go back and forth in every which way. This is not a step-by-step linear process. We start by empathizing. Empathizing is understanding the needs of our users, as Milena put it, or the humans with whom we might be designing or redesigning a program, policy, or service. Defining is that problem definition part, right? This is about defining a problem from the perspective of the people who are experiencing it, not the problem as I understand it, right? Ideation is kind of just a fancy word for coming up with ideas. You're going to spend the next 5 days coming up with your big ideas that Dimas invited you to do. Prototyping, I'm going to show you what that looks like when you prototype a policy, a program, or a service. And then test. Testing is, did I get it right? In the problem definition space, did I get it right? Am I defining your problem from your perspective so that I can start putting resources into actually trying to solve your problem? And this is a methodology that has been used primarily by the private sector for the last 30 years. It was popularized by IDEO, it's a really big design firm, the Stanford D School. This is design thinking, right? And this is borrowed from technology, right? Technology is made in this way. What do the users need? Defining what they need, coming up with ideas, prototyping, like making an app. So no one makes an app without first drawing it on paper. But what I will say is that the way in which we apply this process has nothing to do with technology and everything to do with understanding humans. Because if we just put right, like why would it take 2 years to move to Microsoft Teams, right? It's not about the technology, it's about the humans and understanding their readiness to change within an institution. And especially when there are barriers, especially when we have, as Vladan was talking about, management that isn't willing to change, even though the organization might need to change, right? I'm checking my chat here. Selma is also an expert in design thinking. Awesome. Expert is a hard word. Yes, I agree with that. So you clearly are an expert in design thinking if you find the term expert difficult. Right, Nicola? Empathy and users' feedback are the most important in the human-centered design process, says Ernest. Ernest, I'm going to invite you to find your voice, which is what I like to say instead of you're on mute. And would you mind sharing a little bit about that? Where are you, Ernest? You're on mute and I can't see your face. There you are.
He's hiding a monster. You see beautiful monster behind him.
Everything I wanted to say, I just written.
Can you tell me from your experience, Ernest, why empathy and users' feedback are most important in the process?
Because there were so many projects, ideas, strategies, action plans, but if all these things and issues are not resolving and are not based on the users, it's fail in the end.
Yes, excellent. See, that was worthwhile hearing more from Ernest, right? Asking him to expand on what he shared.
Always.
Because I don't want to be the only one talking about this stuff. So, yeah, and I think what you're saying here too, Ernest, is we have prototyping, we have testing. So it may be that we have the most beautiful technology, but if it doesn't ultimately meet the needs of an organization, of an institution, of a ministry, of any type of government body, of a nonprofit organization, then it's just something that's shiny and flashy, right? So the way that we usually define things like innovation, like I live really close to Silicon Valley, right? So the Silicon Valley definition of innovation is all about technology. It's the on-demand app that will deliver tacos to your rooftop brunch party by drone, right? That's a real product. I can be on a rooftop, I can download this app, and a drone will deliver tacos to me, right? Someone made that because someone said that was something they needed. So, okay, great. How does that help us solve getting people jobs, getting people housed, right? Those are not problems that are being solved that are holistic. We talked about a holistic approach to crisis management earlier, right? So it might be that that's some really great technology, but it doesn't actually do anything for the betterment of humans. Checking here, Selma, you are able to attract others by arguments and your energy. So I would immediately start with design thinking with your support. Excellent. That's a reflection from Tahana. Fully agree with Tahana. Selma is a great influencer. Selma, I think that you should take over from here, and I'll just go to bed. Just kidding, I can't. I've had way too much coffee, so you're with me for at least the next 45 minutes. So I'm gonna move back over here. So we talked about the process a little bit, And please feel free to come off mute at any time to share anything. And this is what I really want to convey here, is that the design process is really a series of decision points to solve a problem. Dimas is saying technology is not innovation. Innovation is the way people use technology to deliver value. Thank you, Dimas. You may also recall at the beginning of this, we were playing with Zoom a little bit, right? So we're using the technology in a different way so that we can make it more engaging, so that it could actually fit our needs. It could fit our needs of us sitting in our little boxes for several hours and trying to connect and learn from each other. So thank you for that. Human-centered design is not anything that is brand new. It's not rocket science. It's really about tapping into the creative potential that exists within every individual within an organization, regardless of our organizational hierarchies, regardless of how long they've been in their job, regardless of any of that. This is about collaborative problem solving. It's multi-stakeholder engagement, it's creative experimentation, and most importantly, it's designing with and not for, which was the co-creation process that Milena was talking about in the civil society work. So I leave this here because this approach to design that involves human input throughout the entire process, sometimes words like design and innovation can be intimidating to people, can be exclusionary, especially some of our colleagues who have been doing the same job for 30 years, right? Maybe they have the same paper-based process that they're very comfortable. Maybe they're so comfortable signing their name with their dominant hand that they couldn't even imagine trying it another way. So these are just other, we talk about communications. These are just some other terms to describe human-centered design in a way that might be more accessible. Thank you, Tahana. I appreciate that. All right. This I think is really cool. If we were all in person and I had a whiteboard, I'd be drawing this out for you. We were talking a little bit about divergent and convergent thinking. So in design thinking, we do what's called the double diamond. And we have our challenge over here, or the problem that we're trying to solve. And we diverge, meaning we go big, we go out, right? Just like Dimas is offering us to explore our big, wild ideas. And then when we define, we're taking that and we're making it smaller, we're smallifying it, right? Because the challenge of COVID-19 is much too big. What does COVID-19 look like as it is playing out in public administration in Albania or North Macedonia, right? It's going to look very different, most likely. So we want to understand what are these smaller pieces of an overall challenge that we can actually make some meaningful effort into. And then we go big again, because we're going to leverage our big ideas to deliver some sort of outcome. So over here, this is my favorite part. We are understanding and reframing a problem. We're doing some synthesis. We're pulling out insights and themes so that we can really understand. Even, we're talking about cultural barriers here too. Sometimes the words that I use are not going to be the same as words that you might use. And we might have different definitions of those words. So when you do the prototyping, when you sketch your ideas, when you're trying to present your ideas in a way that is not written or is not spoken, language can be very limiting. So what we'll end up doing together tomorrow, this is setting us up for what we're going to do tomorrow, which is sketch and build and work together in a team. And this is what some of this looks like in real life, so to speak. These are journey maps where we're measuring behavior over time. We're trying to understand how a user might move through a particular service or program that we're designing. And these are what prototypes look like. Rosie, do you remember your prototype from last year?
Yes. It was about change of the technology or something.
What did you use to build it, Rosie?
I don't know. Sorry. Some folia or frame and paper and maybe some stickers.
And what did that do for sharing your ideas?
To others or to me?
Both.
Well, it showed me how we can pilot things, how we can not visualize, but in tangible, at least very simple and subjects we can do. We can produce our idea in order to make others more understand our visions that we have. So
Yes.
in order to explain them in so many words, we can just show them. Either it was very, as I said, very simple.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Rosie. What about you, Vladan? Do you remember your prototype?
Yes, I do remember. It was very funny to make it. It was first time to make prototype for IT things. So it was very interesting first to understand idea of making a prototype, because first you need to have everything in your head to make a picture of your idea. So it was very interesting to work with ladies from Directorate of IT on this, especially to make antennas, Wi-Fi connection, and I told you last week I tried to use or to make prototypes for any kind of jobs that I want to make, even here in office or in private life. But I must agree with others, it's not easy to use it. Yes, Rosalinda, thank you. It is it's not easy to manage everything, because especially in IT things, because as I wrote in chat room, technology is just a tool, but if you don't have an idea how to use at the end, it will just stay hardware, iron, or software code. So if you want to make a good prototype, you need to have to have a vision what you want at the end, because I think some prototypes will remain prototype, will never see the lights of day. It will stay inside your head or inside your room.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love that. And some prototypes need not to see the light of day, right? Sometimes the point is that they're not going to work, but then we know, because that minimizes our chance of, like I was saying, wasting more time and money on solving a problem that might not even be the problem that we want to solve, right? Checking chat. Demas says, technology is applied know-how. Acquiring and applying the know-how are above all human processes. Of course, another great use of language by Demas. Thank you for sharing. So again, human-centered design or design thinking, using this in the public sector context as opposed to private sector, as opposed to just making the fancy app, means that we have greater complexity and constraints. We have organizational hierarchies and we have higher stakes, right? Because we can't choose who our customers are. We can't choose a market segment that we want to respond to, right? That we want to bring our ideas to. We have to create things that work for all. And often when we're making something that is accessible to the most vulnerable residents that we're serving, or even our colleagues who might have their own accessibility issues, we actually make things that work for everyone. So I did want to take a moment to talk about as well I think of this work, I think of bringing in a design process as the R&D of the public sector, the research and development, right? We don't have the luxury of having a huge research and development budget or department that is going to allow for us to constantly be testing things. But what we can do is this at a smaller scale, is figure out if what we are creating or proposing, whether it's a policy, program, or service, is desirable, viable, or feasible. This is supposed to be in the middle here what innovation is, right? Are we making something that people want? Can we actually fund it, and can we build it? Innovation in IT do happen, but they are happening only as a response to enable innovations in service or adding value to services or products, is what Rosie is saying here. Prototypes facilitate the leap from thinking to doing. They ensure we are not thinking in a vacuum, and they reduce the risk of doing things that won't work. Thank you, Demas. Great reflections here. It seems like y'all are getting this. So, what happens when we don't use human-centered design? Other Tamra, I want to hear your voice. Can I hear your voice?
Sure. Me?
Yes.
Oh, there are several bad things that can happen if we don't use human-centered design. Oh, there are some good things that can happen if our project or product is successful, but there's a greater chance that we might fail, or that we will realize that we're failing too late. After all the effort and all the expenses and so on and so on, yeah?
Yes. Yes, excellent. Thank you. It's nice to hear you. Demas says disaster. Demas said disaster happens when we don't use human-centered design. So the example that I'm going to share, again, from my limited perspective as someone who was born and lives in the United States, was this very epic failure that we called healthcare.gov. Have any of you heard of healthcare.gov or what happened? Goran, you raised your hand. You have? Yep.
Yeah, I just want to confirm I heard, yeah.
Yep,
Maybe.
exactly. So our friend... So our friend...
Just continue, sorry.
Thank you. Our friend Mikey Dickerson, who was the first director of the United States Digital Service, told us last year when we were in Montenegro that the failure of healthcare.gov actually ended up costing US taxpayers somewhere around $5 billion. Isn't that crazy? Wikipedia will tell you that it was $1 billion. But someone who was actually there who had to essentially clean up the mess that was healthcare.gov. So this was the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. This is where policy meets technology in a disastrous way, to use Demas's words. And what happened here was a giant tech firm got a giant contract with the federal government to build a website that would allow Americans to purchase healthcare online for their first time ever, right? And what happened was the site crashed, it didn't work, no one was ever consulted from the diverse stakeholder universe that is the complex system of healthcare in the United States. We have insurance companies, we have lobbyists, we have decentralized systems between state and county. What else do we got, Tamra? Tamra Strzentich, is she still here?
Patient advocates, patients, marginalized communities, thinking through all of their needs and accessibility needs.
Right, exactly. None of those needs were taken into consideration with the launch of healthcare.gov. Does anyone else have another example of a disastrous failure that resulted from lack of multi-stakeholder input?
I would just add, if I can briefly, I would not recall on any particular case, but since we are dealing with the EU-funded institution ReSPA, and all these countries being present today with us, representatives are coming from public administration, they are familiar with IPA funds, with IPA EU-funded institutions. Usually those ones are being made quite before before it is actually executed. So the pipeline of the project usually starts like 2 years before it is actually executed. And many times there is even not in a preparation any kind of design thinking approach, nor in the moment once this is executed. So as the one who has been part of those type of projects before entering ReSPA, I was really feeling frustrated, understanding that the main goal of the project and foreseen results usually mismatch with reality, and due to the lack of communication with the stakeholders or refresh of it. So I would really think that this learning about how to use design thinking, maybe even in a simplified manner, as Judy, you are now giving to us, would mean a lot, and would also overcome the boundaries once thinking, how can I present this to my boss in public administration institution? They would immediately reject it. I think it is worth also to reflect on that in the coming days, how we can actually hide before they are actually on board, and how we can, under commas, treat them to allow us to do this type of methodology or elements of it in order to actually reach the result, and then it would be already objective and rational with the facts that someone can say do it from now on.
Was that a question?
Question and kind request to reflect on in the next days, because maybe it's not the right time, but maybe over the next days.
Got it. And Tamra down there is also mentioning that it makes sense that the Agile expert would be calling out the waterfall methodology here. Do you want to say just a couple quick words about that, Tamra?
Yes, I was actually thinking about discussing this example a little bit more in depth when we talked about Agile, because in addition to design thinking, which could have, of course, prevented this, as you put it, disaster, also using a different methodology could have prevented the disaster. So because with Agile, what you do is also you present what is called minimum viable product. So something this you feel is presentable to the end user, and you present it and you test it in this way. This is a form of testing that we use in Agile.
Yep. Excellent. So I'm doing the non-tech version of that, right? Like our prototypes look different than that, right? It's a minimum viable policy or a minimum viable process, right? But these methodologies we're like best friends. We couldn't do the work that we do without each other, right? Let's check the chat here. Anna says, Harvard Business School, research has shown that over the past 10 years, 94% of large federal IT projects, yes. Could you please comment? Comment on the epic failure of IT projects.
And also the involvement of public sector. Because we have sometimes also in Montenegro, we have this, not just us, but all administration worldwide have the failure of these large projects. And I see that this failure is a bit, we see less failure in the private sector. So maybe there is some, I don't know, one of the reasons that you said also and explained this healthcare.gov failure was the maybe accountability and the lack of knowledge and understanding, and sometimes we waste so much resources and we do not, so to say, engage even the private sector companies, and we do not get what we want and what we spend money on. You mentioned previously also the different donor projects. USAID was quite, as in Montenegro, has very bright experience. We have really excellent experience with them. They were quite focused and they really contribute to economic reform process, which was great. They reshaped the project, helped to reshape the Montenegrin economy. It is not the case with many, many other projects. So we think that sometimes we are dealing the problems that do not, solving the problems that do not exist. And sometimes these projects, and it's maybe it's something in the composition of the public sector or something else.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the response and that you're provoking this conversation. I don't have the answer. So I'm going to share what I think, and then I'm going to offer it up to all of you other experts to share what you think about this. So Anna is asking us to try to understand why large IT projects within government fail. And what I would offer to that is in comparison to the private sector, right? We can't compare ourselves, one, because again, I was showing you we don't have research and development. I think it has to do with the cultural composition of bureaucratic institutions, that we are not encouraging everyone within that institution to bring their creative ideas to life. In the private sector, Google, for example, I think they spend maybe 10% of their total workflows, right, on encouraging employees to come up with ideas, right? So I think it has something to do with that. We don't give people permission to be creative problem solvers because we're so beholden to exactly what Goran was talking about. It's like we're more concerned about following a process or a procedure. We're more concerned about doing the same thing because we haven't given ourselves permission culturally within government to do that. Now that doesn't, I mean, there's a lot of great examples, and I'm sure that my other design thinking expert here can speak to that. Finland, for example, uses design thinking as part of how its government creates policies, services, and programs, right? There's a lot of other examples. And just like you were saying, Anna, it's not always that USAID doesn't do the right thing. It's not always that, you know, sometimes these smaller technology projects, but that would be my hypothesis. Does anyone else have any other guess? Maybe Dimas?
Judy, sorry, just to add, because you mentioned Finland. It reminded me many of our colleagues went to the Finland also by the support of ReSPA. The last visit of ours happened last year in November, where, just before the youngest prime minister in the world has been elected, and her office gave us a small insight in what they are doing. And I was amazed understanding that they are doing future strategies the last 30 years. And I really asked them 2 times, did I understand the term? Is it something else? But they did confirm it's future. And they do foresight thinking, and they are amazed how they predict certain things. And today's Nadica's input on crisis management, and many of us mentioned this aspect, was many times actually isolated over there. As a term, as a concept, as a way of approaching and mitigating the future risks. So I really adore your example and their model, and maybe we can come back to it at some point later on.
Excellent. Thank you, Goran. Yeah, that's definitely a resource I would like to share. I heard Dimas.
Yes, you invited me to make a comment. My comment is the following. The diverge-converge model is excellent. It's basically saying you do creative thinking first, critical thinking afterwards. But give yourself time to do creative thinking. And if it's creative, its way out, it's going to be different. It has to be different. You need courage to imagine the completely impossible. Because otherwise you're saying it's simply crazy and you're dismissing the crazy. Well, don't. So many great things started from crazy ideas. Then afterwards, when you're doing the convergent thinking, if we don't do it skillfully, we throw away everything which is really imaginative and new because it's more difficult, because it will be more difficult to sell to people. And that, once again, we need skill, I think, in both of these processes, in the creative process, in the diverge, and in the converge. That's a part of the process. We need to do well. We need a lot of courage to make this work. Otherwise, we are simply repeating A, B, C, and that's not what you want when you're dealing with change.
Thank you, Dimas.
Thank you.
Anybody? Yeah, I really appreciate that. I love this diverge converge model as well. I think to get back to Anna's question though, because I am really curious what the other experts on this call think. Why is it that so many government IT projects fail? I might look at my friend Vladan. Do you have anything to say about that?
As a second, why always me? No, of course, some failed because, as I tell many times, if we don't have understanding from our management, it will fail. If citizens don't accept idea, it will fail. I think Milena wrote about COVID, some application to follow people connection. It's failed because people are afraid of new technology, new idea, 5G, HARP system, etc. So government needs to explain citizen and even employee that new technology, new idea, new softwares, it's made for them to work faster, better, to be more transparent. But I am afraid we will continue to lose our ideas if we not sit first, make prototype and see the benefit of all of that. If we just make new softwares on daily basis, for what? So maybe, and there is a ReSPA to help all of us to exchange ideas, to exchange projects. If Bosnia or Macedonia makes something and it's failed, okay, let's share that to not fail in Serbia also. So that is why we want to ReSPA be the, let's say, the hub, to be the first place where we can exchange information, make together some project. So if something work in some country, probably will work in another, because we was the same country a few years ago, and our mentality is similar. So.
All right, thank you for that. I don't mean to pick on you, but you're my friend, and I like to hear your voice.
Oh,
and your hair does look nice. Okay.
Oh, you see, it's a special one for pilots. So.
Very good. All right, so Selma, our other design thinking human, has weighed in here. I think generally many projects fail because one, the problem is not defined well. They come to an institution, organization offering a project with an already defined problem and even solution. And two, we very much miss the prototype phase in this whole process. Yes, thank you, Selma, for adding that. And then Tahana was saying that IT experts too often consult with other IT experts, not the final users. And Anna, go ahead. How do you feel about how this whole call of experts answered your question or didn't answer your question? What do you think? Anna?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I think it was a very inspiring discussion, and I really appreciate. And again, you made me think and maybe better understand when you attack someone else failing at the problem, and then you start to see what is the failure on your side. So I think this is a really great opportunity. Thank you for all the comments made, because it helped me always that it's always easier to point finger, at someone else and not looking at what is your problem, what you didn't do right. So it's there is always the blame on both sides. When something is not successful, it's two sides of every story. So usually both sides are not fitting. But I really like the answers I'm getting from this discussion. It's great.
All right, we did it.
Thank you.
Applause. Let's do our little baby applause. Thank you. See, isn't it fun to see movement in our boxes? Great. Okay, so Tamara Serzentic, I have 15 minutes, right? Okay, I'm the last one. No one else needs to. Okay, very good. All right, now I'm going to talk quickly through some examples of how we apply human-centered design. And again, this is from a limited perspective because it's my perspective, and they're my projects, or my firm's projects, I should say. And so I'm curious how these might resonate with you. So the application of human-centered design, here is a project that we were lucky enough to do with Tamara and California Health and Human Services. So this is a co-creation workshop. We were talking about co-creation earlier. What you're looking at here is a representative sample of stakeholders across the state of California who wanted to use data to improve health and human service delivery. So in this photo, we have clinicians, we have epidemiologists, we have journalists, we have academics, and they are collaborating around what it might look like to have a more accessible platform where folks can collaborate around data. There's a lot I could say about this, and I'm sure maybe Tamara could also say. Maybe you want to add just your quick take, given that you were on the client side of this.
Yes, so our premise was, how might we create a digital space in which the data consumers and suppliers will meet and have meaningful interactions. And we wanted to be really intentional about that. Obviously, there's a lot of people consuming data, but where do we begin? And how do we actually create something that is actionable? People are already interacting with different social networks. Why do we need that other space? So this has to be truly something that will give them that safe space to actually ask questions around data and get answers and engage in a very meaningful way. So our prototyping session involving all those people who are part of that ecosystem was really helpful.
Excellent, thanks Tam. A lot more we could say about this as well, but I'm going to move along. This is another example of a project that we did with the city of San Francisco, where we were helping them set up what it might look like to have user testing group. So again, private sector, those products, the product with the drone and the tacos, right? They test that with real users before they roll it out. I gave the example of healthcare.gov, which was not tested with users. Like, I certainly was never asked how I might procure healthcare through a website for the first time ever. So what you're looking at here, this is just an interesting disconnect that happens that I think speaks to the cultural piece that I was talking about a little bit earlier, where institutions do not really give individuals working within them permission to be creative. So this was an example of the Transportation Authority wanting to reroute a bus line. So they're rerouting the 33 bus line, and they had community engagement folks because, you know, they want to ask the community what they think about this reroute. And they said, well, we'll go to the farmer's market, we'll go to the mall, wherever people gather, right? And we said, why don't you just get on the 33 bus line? Why don't you just get on the bus that you're planning to reroute and talk to people about their journey, about how they navigate the system, about what they would do if the bus route changed? Why do you think that they wouldn't think to do that? What do you think, Tamara? I saw you smile a little.
They probably thought it would be too simple, right? When we think in government, how might we engage with humans you're serving? We overthink it. A lot of people overthink it. This is why with your magic, Judy, we're gonna understand what are the simple ways that we can engage with humans you're serving in a meaningful way.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes the best solution is the simplest solution. We don't have to overcomplicate things. How do you think we ended up with all the complexity that we have? We just kept, because because maybe we put too much emphasis on the experts. And maybe to get to a certain place where you're considered an expert, you have to embrace complexity, right? So this is about kind of, again, finding that middle ground between expert and lived experience. So this, for example, this is a lived experience. This is a researcher from our team that we sent to learn from a human whose life would be changed by a decision that's being made by an institution, right? And even though it seems like the most difficult part is to be simple, yes, Selma, definitely. Even though it seems like, where was I going with this actually? Now I'm kind of losing my train of thought. How much time do I have left? I have 10 minutes. What can I do in 10 minutes? Is someone coming off mute to help me?
No, I think you're on the right track. I was just taking you back to give you more context, but I think you can carry on.
I remember. Thank you, Tam. See, even just hearing your voice, it's like I can feel those heart emojis come at me and it makes me feel strong and remember where I am. So this took an hour. It took an hour to sit with this consumer of the public transit system and learn about how he navigated the system. So I get a lot of people who will ask me questions about, well, how long does it take? How many people do we have to talk to? There's no magic number, right? Talking to one person who rides the 33 bus line though is better than not talking to anyone who rides the 33 bus line to inform the decision of how that bus will be rerouted, right? What do you think? Yes? Y'all are with me? All right, got a few more minutes here. So I'm just going to talk through these tools. We won't have time to actually play with them because again, my friends at ReSPA asked me to do the impossible, which is take a lot of content and activity and squish it down into a space the size of our boxes here, and that's okay. I think that we're doing some good work together. I've heard some voices, I've learned a lot, so that's always a good thing. So some of the human-centered tools that we might use in terms of change management are engagement, visioning and guiding principles, active and empathic listening, which becomes very important, not just in how we do our work, but how we live our lives. And then there's a tool that we can share called an empathy map. Maybe we'll have time to go through that tomorrow, but this is usually an engagement timeline for how we might ask the community, for example, or how we might ask a group of users for their input. There's usually some time that a project has been planned, right? Some decisions have been made, the project is initiated, and then all of a sudden, we decide to ask, say this is the 33 bus line, right? So all of these decisions were made, it's initiated, and then we talk to that one user and he says, hey, you already made all of these decisions without my input. So what's going to happen? Well, I'm not going to trust you to create something that is actually going to meet my needs. So what a human-centered design engagement timeline might look like is that we decide to engage right around the time that we actually plan the project. And as we've been talking about a lot, and we should talk about even more, is communication, right? Communicating what these decisions are, then we might actually build some trust instead of lose trust. I'm gonna check my chat here. Can we ask for some concrete ideas, some pilot projects, maybe to help us with some proposal for piloting? Yes, but not right now, because I only have 7 minutes left. So let's table that, Vladan. You're gonna be here tomorrow too, right? Okay,
I'm gonna share
good.
photos of Vladan's and Rosie's and Nikolai's prototypes tomorrow. So
excellent. Okay, so we won't forget. I wanted to add this quote that says, "Nothing about us without us." This was from a group of disability activists in the 1970s in the United States who were saying, why would you make any kind of decision about our experience without our input, right? So this was before we had, it's called the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And this is what tells us how much room we need to have in buildings so that wheelchairs can get through, right? Who better to inform how a wheelchair might navigate a building besides someone who has actually had the experience of being in a wheelchair, right? Why wouldn't we want their input? Gonna keep going. I just really love that quote. And then this is where we come to how we, what was that, Tam?
To Tamara's bubbles.
Tamara's bubbles. So this is a stakeholder identification exercise that my firm came up with, that Tamara calls her bubbles. They look like circles to me, but she sees bubbles, and that's okay. And what this looks like is if we are designing a policy that is supposed to serve people with disabilities, then we want the most people that we talk to inform that problem definition, to inform the ideation, to inform the prototyping, to be the people with direct experience. Okay, so sometimes the direct experience people might also have indirect experience. Indirect experience might be that I'm an expert in policy regarding disabilities, but I don't have a disability myself, right? So this might be someone who's working in that domain, but is not actually the end user. Then subject expertise, that's like people who are on this call. We have our Agile folks, we have our design thinking folks, we have our public administration folks. I certainly did an advanced degree in public administration because I think it's so important to understand how we have designed our institutions so that we can undesign the parts that aren't working for us. And then yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go Tam.
No, I didn't. I thought that you were finishing up, and I was going to say this was not number one meaningful tool that our team has been using, and you all should print it out, put it in your office or your home office, and try to experiment with it.
Thank you, Tam. And we'll go through this at a greater length tomorrow when we talk about when we get into actually doing our ideas. So I know we only have a few minutes remaining. So right now I am going to stop sharing and I will go over some of these slides with you tomorrow before we get into our teams. Oh, great. We just got to do active and empathic listening and some good facilitation. So now I just want to take a moment. I told you that I'm always collecting data. Data for me means input from humans about their experiences. So I want to offer this space right now to get some input from you all by way of a plus delta. So tell me something that worked well in this 2-ish hours that we've had together and something that you might change. We all know that this is a time of adaptability and resilience, and we come to an experience like this with a plan, and the plan will fundamentally change regardless of what happens because this is human-centered design. And we are going to take time to really dig into that. This next portion that I am grateful enough to be able to lead you all through will be very interactive. I'm going to put you into groups. You will talk to each other like humans do, so we can collect some data and learn from each other. And I do just want to say thank you so much to Nick and Dimas and the whole ReSPA team. And Slaven doesn't get enough love for everything that he is doing behind the scenes as well. So before jumping in, I just wanted to say those things so that I don't forget, because I'm going to attempt the impossible, which is to put you in teams. You work on a challenge together. You're going to empathize, you're going to define a problem, you're going to ideate, you're going to prototype, and you're going to test your prototypes, all within the beautiful constraint of time and space. right? And the space, again, being these little boxes that we're in. And before we do that, I did want to mention, or perhaps acknowledge or apologize for my terrible American accent. If I mispronounce your name, will you please correct me? That's part of us being able to connect, is being referred to how we want to be referred to. So please forgive me. I have not spent a lot of time, unfortunately, in parts of the world that you all are. So again, I'm just really grateful to be here. And also, being patient with me because my timing is a little off, and you know, drinking coffee at 1 a.m. is a little bit weird on my birthday, but here we are. So let's get into it. Does it sound good? And we have some of our little norms that we're creating together. Like when we're happy about something, we're gonna do our little applause, right? So y'all wanna show me that? Yes, all right, so happy we can be together. Okay, excellent. So let me move us in to what we came here to do, which is some rapid innovation using human-centered design. Yes, the silent hero of ReSPA. Very good. We love Slaven. Okay. So as we are going through this, I've been organizing and reorganizing these slides. That's why when my friends at ReSPA will ask me to send slides weeks in advance, I'm like, sure, and they will change on the fly, because that's what we're going to have to do, is continuously adapt to time and space. And I see Garan smiling down there because he knows. So first, I want to share our virtual environment agreements, right? Because we're all, you know, dealing with internet access, dealing with perhaps, we were talking in the chat earlier during Nick's presentation about some of the challenges of navigating. Perhaps we have children in distance learning and we're working from home. So if possible, we would love for you to keep your video on, especially as we move into breakout rooms, so that we can really connect. If that's not possible, you know, some people will send me private messages saying why they can't be on video. It's okay. The invitation is that you're here, you're present, you're engaged. Give yourself the gift of spending this time with people who you might not have ever met otherwise. Being mindful of background noise if you're unmuted. Again, I don't love the idea that everyone is just on mute by default, because you may recall that Nick had a pretty funny slide and I was laughing, but he couldn't hear me laugh about his slide because I was automatically on mute. So if you're able to be off mute, there might be times where I make some jokes and I would love to hear you laugh or respond. And I also really want to encourage us to have a dialogue here as much as possible within our constraints of time and space. We already know how to use the chat. Again, it will be really helpful for me if your name and your profile name on Zoom is the name you want to be referred to. And again, you may have to correct my pronunciation. If I start to turn into a robot, which will happen because this is human-centered design, and we always have to remind ourselves not to be robots. Just kidding, I'm talking about internet connection. Please just let me know and I'll turn off my video and you can, you know, still see me here, but just not with my mouth moving. Does that all sound good to everybody? Okay, excellent. So now I want to bring us some other agreements that I would like for us to explore in this space. These are similar to our virtual learning agreements, but they go a bit deeper, because what we're going to do today is we're going to dig into these topics that we explored yesterday a bit deeper. So I ask that you be here now as much as possible. I know that some of you might have some emails to respond to, or maybe we have to go roll our cigarette and turn our video off, right, Nautica? So those are okay. Take care of what you need to do, but being here now as much as possible, especially because this is all about you interacting with each other. This is not a presentation that you can tune out. If that's what you want to do, then there might be a pre-recorded webinar that you could watch. This is about us interacting with each other. I put this step up and step back. Does anybody know what I'm referring to when I say step up and step back? Okay, I see Tahana, you're nodding, so you might know, yes. Okay, the invitation here is some of us really have no problem at all talking quite a bit, right? Some of us who might be a little more extroverted, it's not difficult for us to share our ideas verbally. If you are that person, I want to invite you to take a step back when you're in your breakout rooms and really allow for the people who you can recognize have a bit of a tougher time speaking their ideas to step up. Does that make sense? So if I'm usually up front, I'm gonna step back. I'm going to give the space for my colleagues to share their brilliant ideas. In this way, we're giving ourselves permission to step into a role that feels a little less comfortable, but we're encouraging each other to do that. Sound good? Okay. I ask that you listen actively and stay curious. Help us keep things on time, although you have no idea what I'm planning and it will change in the next few minutes probably. So I will be assigning some roles within the breakout rooms so that I don't have to be fully responsible for your entire experience. I ask that you practice non-attachment, and I put here to your own ideas. Right? Because what we're going to do is we're going to come up with ideas together, and we're going to encourage creative ideas to come out of the people in our rooms, which I call roommates. Those are going to be your roommates, right? Practicing non-attachment to your own ideas means that you are open to having your idea that someone else builds on and makes even more beautiful. All right, and then we're going to do a lot of reflection, not as much reflection as we would have if we had an entire week together in person. And then the last request is that we defer judgment, okay? So I'm just gonna quickly take a scan and see if everyone is okay with those agreements. Can we agree? Can we do our thing? Okay, excellent, thank you. I got the thumbs, very good. Is there anything that anyone would like to add? No? Okay. Please feel free to share in the chat. Like everything else, these are a prototype that we are continuously iterating on relative to the context that we're in. So I wanted to quickly bring us back to the human-centered change management model that we talked about yesterday. Reload. Are we seeing that this is not loading? Larry, hold on. Who wants to tell me or tell the group what is human-centered change management? Ooh. Someone come off mute and share that while I fix my slides here. Not everyone at once, because I can't hear you when you all talk over each other. All right, Tamara, you want to help me out?
It's not just about adapting to the change, it's about leading the change and thinking, and the core of it is the human heart.
Yes, beautiful. It's not just about adapting to the change, but leading through it. And the core is the human component of it, right? Because we can come up with any sort of plan for how we might manage change, right? For how we might deal with a, the type of crises that we're dealing with. But if we're not considering how it is truly affecting the people around us, then we're not going to be able to actually respond to those needs. And then we might be wasting time on some components of the overall challenge that we think are important without knowing what's really important. And thank you, Tam, for putting in there as well. When we recognize that all change is experienced by humans, thank you for that, Demas. Let's try my slides again and see how this goes. So managing change by using this process of human-centered design. Can you all see that? Great. So this is what we're going to practice together in the next 2.5 hours. All right, we're going to empathize with each other. We're going to define a problem from the perspective of one of the unique individuals who's in this collective virtual room today. We're going to ideate, come up with ideas of how to solve that particular challenge. We're going to prototype. Our prototypes are not precious. I'll talk about that a little bit more. That's similar to practicing non-attachment to our ideas, and then we're going to test what we came up with. I put this double diamond back in because this is similar to what Dimas was talking about going out and then coming back. So what we do in this double diamond model is this is designing the right thing or designing things right. In our challenge, we're diverging, we're going big, we're looking at these different challenges, and then we define them, we come back and we converge so that we're not dealing with just one giant challenge that feels overwhelming. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but I did think that this visual was similar to what I heard Dimas talk about, focusing on one thing and missing a lot of other things. And this is also an opportunity for us to suspend our disbelief. Also took a note of that, Dimas. Thank you for that reminder. And of course, this design process, as we learned yesterday, and some of you who weren't in the room yesterday, this is all about decision points to solve a problem. Whenever we can back up a decision that we have made, if it is in regard to a policy, a program, a procedure, with data that represents the needs of those who are going to experience that policy, program, or procedure, it actually helps us do our jobs better, right? It helps us to be able to justify why we've made certain decisions. So I really like this idea of connecting design with decision making, because all of us are designers, even if we don't think of ourselves as designers. Can someone give me an example of your day-to-day in which you might use design? When do we use design? Okay,
Can you clarify what do you mean when do we use design?
Yeah, what does that mean to you? Tamara says when cooking. Dimas had his hand raised. What do you think, Dimas? Find your voice.
I think, can I see?
Sure. I see Dimas's mouth moving, but I don't hear his voice. So go ahead, Goran. Let's start with you, then go to Dimas.
I think the design process comes whenever we switch on our brain in a very new situations, whenever we are not doing things by default. Cooking, doing anything that is not at ordinary level. That's the process of design.
When we have a problem to solve, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. When we have a problem to solve, design thinking is precious.
I love that. Thank you, Dimas. And Vladan says, when we want to make something new and interesting to catch eyes. Okay, those are all really great examples. So we spend a lot of time in virtual reality, right? Who here sends emails? Raise your hand if you send emails. Okay, so when you are crafting an email, you know people who you send emails to where if you have more than one topic in that email, they will only respond to one? Does that ever happen to you? I see some smiles, I see some hands, right? So we learn about the people with whom we are collaborating, and we adjust the way that we communicate to fit their style of communication, right? So I have a colleague on my team who, if I have more than one ask in an email, he'll just ignore the other two and maybe just respond to one. So then I learn that next time I will do separate emails for each topic, and that will be more efficient for both of us. That's information design, right? This is a way of designing how you communicate to get to a particular outcome or to create some sort of action. So we are all designers, whether we have those of us who actually have studied design as a discipline, or what I call capital D designers, right? Our graphic designers, our industrial designers, our architects, or we're also lowercase d designers, because we're always coming up with different ways to interact with our environment based on what we've learned. And as we learned yesterday, human-centered design is not just a buzzword, right? It actually boils down to collaborative problem solving, which we'll do together, engaging with multiple stakeholders, experimenting creatively, just like Tamara was saying in the chat about going back to our inner child. Public administration does not actively encourage that we regularly get in touch with our inner child. I don't know about your institutions or ministries that you're working in, but I certainly haven't experienced that. So we're just going to, but in this space that we're co-creating, we are going to experience that together. And give me just one quick moment while I go ahead and download this so that we don't have this problem of it loading anymore. I'm going to talk really quickly about some traits of a change leader. Do you all remember how we talked about change management and change leadership yesterday? Do y'all remember some of those qualities of a leader? What makes a good change leader? Tahana, you want to find your voice and share?
Here I am with my voice, just that two boys are playing check next to me, so they may find their voices as well. Well, it is also about being empathic and being open and being ready to listen, not only to talk, and to lead also through turbulent times, and to be able to figure out what is the person who are you actually leading, which problems they also
Excellent.
And yeah, basically this also circle that you showed, the circle which you showed. Yes.
Thank you, Tahana. Awesome.
You need to empathize with the kids. They need them out.
Yes, beautiful. I love that. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Anything else to say about traits of a change leader?
I think this newly married guy seems like he wants to say something.
All right, newly married guy. Vanya, you're being put on the spot.
Yes, I just love it when Goran is absolutely direct. The reason why I was laughing, because the situation with Tihana reminded me of the BBC interview, but I absolutely love it, because Vladan was mentioning earlier on that what we have been talking about working remotely or working from home is that we usually refer to this situation right now, meaning working in a pandemic. And we have to be very careful to what we are actually talking about. And that's what Vladan was referring to. So in most situations, what we are actually doing right now is not working from home. We are at home and we are just trying to work, but we are basically struggling with everything that's going on around us. So real remote work, or as Tamara also likes to call it, distributed work, is completely different to what we are experiencing right now. And that's one thing that we have to have in mind.
Excellent, thank you
and
so much.
Design thinking, change management, my definition would be that's the stuff Judy is excelling at.
Thank you, Vanya. It's only when I'm able to co-create that space with people like you. So thank you for that. And thank you all for, okay, did this slide come up now? We got it? This is us being adaptable and taking care of each other. So we have communication, ability to inspire others, emotional intelligence and empathy that Tahana was talking about. Thank you. Strategic thinking, decisiveness, confidence. So similar to what we were talking about in terms of the strengths finders. So now we'll talk a little bit more about empathy, especially because we just had the privilege of empathizing with Tihana, what it means to be working from home, but actually just in some cases holding it together while there's utter chaos and while there are things that we can't control, right? So I wanted to quickly share this visual that I actually really like of the process of change. So if this is an individual, right, we have all of these different emotions that we might go through: anxiety, happiness, fear, guilt, depression, hostility. Sometimes we'll go to denial. Sometimes, we'll gradual acceptance. This is similar to the stages of grief, right? And this is just to remind ourselves that the individuals who make up our organizations may be on any part of this curve at any given time. So whenever we can show them that we have empathy, it's helpful in us navigating that change. And I know that for some of my IT friends, your type of change that you're facilitating, getting somebody to, maybe adopt a new technology might look a little bit different. We have folks who are typically embracing change or want to be the early adopters, and then we might have folks who are a little more resistant. So for that, this is a tool. I'll share these slides with you. Of course, this is all yours as much as mine, but a tool that we like to use is an empathy map. So if we were to say that this person here in the middle is someone who embraces change, what do they think and feel? What do they see? What do they say and do? What do they hear? What would be some characteristics of someone who might embrace change?
Is that a question or a comment?
It's a question. Optimism. Thank you, Milena. Okay, that's a good characteristic. What else? What might somebody who embraces change say and do? Check my chat. Readiness to adapt new ideas, curiosity, embracing the grain, ambiguity, courage. Courage, beautiful. Okay, let's switch it up. What about somebody who does not embrace change, who is slower to embrace change? What do you think they're thinking and feeling, seeing, saying, and doing? Thank you, Lirdy and Jenny. Motivates and being positive, thinks out of the box. So that was for our champion of change. Yep, fear. Comfort zone oriented, apathy, resisting and judging, feeling threatened. Anxiety, laziness. Yep. And in some cases, those fears are not invalid, right? It's a completely valid fear to be afraid of change. For example, if someone has been doing their job the same way for 30 years and all of a sudden we're changing how they do their job, there can be a lot of fear and anxiety that comes around that. And on any given day, we as individuals can be champions or resistors to change. We are not static. That's the beauty of the human experience, is that we can change, right? And even these characteristics that we talked about earlier of the change leaders, I asked you all yesterday if these are skills or characteristics or traits that you can develop over time. And we certainly can. And some days we can have more empathy for those around us than other days. Yes, thank you, Dimas. Loss of status. Others will perceive me as less confident, powerful, of course. And in public administration, because our institutions are so dependent on titles, experience level, how long someone has been in a certain job, we do end up, there's ego that comes out of it too, right? Like even when we're talking about work in the innovation space, Tamara and I like to say, what do we like to say about this work, Tam? Do you remember? She's.
I was trying to find my mute button.
What do we say?
That, well, it goes back to the heart, right?
Yep. What about the people who are moving this work forward? What do we say about them? No heroes.
Okay, you were getting there. Yes, no heroes. Thank you. You were going back to the ego.
Yes.
There is. I was trying to add that there is we before the I, and especially at this time right now, we need to empower everyone and lift everyone up. There's abundance of problems to be solved, and really it doesn't matter who is solving them. It's the ones who have most strengths and skills to solve them that should be positioned to do so.
Exactly. So this is a mindset that we're talking about, right? This is similar to what Dimas was talking about, critical thinking beginning with observation. The observation is not just those around us, but ourselves. How are we reacting to change? What are we doing to empower those around us? You know, they say the difference between managers and leaders, right? What is the difference between a manager and a leader? Can anyone tell me? I see Tahana smiling, but go ahead.
Responsibility.
A leader is necessarily someone who is leading change. A static or repetitive environment, or somebody who is simply working for efficiency, is a manager. Leader is somebody who is dealing primarily with change.
Yeah,
excellent.
I would add to this difference between the level of responsibility, manager just coordinates, while the leader also takes risks in actually invading the new space and taking the responsibility in very specific and even some dangerous or complex situations, not delegating it to the subordinates, so the front man, the front woman, somebody who fights.
And if I also may add, Goran, I also remember the UNESA conference in Morocco. We got the same question, and then I forgot to say. So now I think it is important. The leader is also there to motivate us, and to always try to strive for the better, because he or she is putting this strength and motivates and finds the best in us and finds our talents as well. So maybe I got stuck in a wrong position in a great company, but most probably the leader, if I doubt the manager, but maybe there are some good, will find that strength again in me and the talent, and will make the best out of it.
I think this is the most important, what Tihana said, apart from these technical things, motivating the people, because we have these two systems, leading by fear and leading by giving people the enablers to be creative, to feel as a part of the system. And I think that this design thinking is actually reminding us, and Judy is giving in each and every example the idea that this human dimension is very much important.
Let me ask a question. Thank you. Oh, Dimas, go ahead.
I don't know if I might be a little bit provocative in that there are differences, we all know, between managers and leaders. That does not diminish the importance of managers, sorry.
Yes.
They are very important. We need them both. One of the most wonderful quotes I heard, but it's anonymous, I don't know who first said it. He said that management without leadership is a recipe for mediocrity. Leadership without management is a recipe for disaster.
Yep, thank you for that, Dimas. I appreciate that. The next question I was going to ask is, can someone be a leader and not be a manager? Yes, Tahana, yeah. Can someone be a leader who is your subordinate within your organization? Can they be a leader? Yeah. What does that look like? When are they able to do that? They could have a vision or an idea. Thank you, Tamara. When we give them space, requires lots of compromises. Yeah, exactly. Remember that question that Anna asked yesterday about why so many large government IT projects fail? And we were talking about culture, and we were talking about the culture of our institutions that happen to be bureaucratic, that happen to be hierarchical. When we create opportunities for those around us to shine, as Tam Serzentage just said, we can often learn from our subordinates, so to speak. That's an appropriate term that you use in your institutions, yeah? Subordinates, or what's another word for people who might be younger, less experienced than you? Nadika, maybe you can help from your communication standpoint.
Co-workers, maybe.
Co-workers?
Yeah. Well, colleagues, we often say colleagues.
Okay, excellent. So,
younger colleagues, they are not usually always younger. Says Miloš Djindjić, younger colleagues.
Right, exactly. So again, there's a mindset piece to this, and there's also a separation between, right, we as experts in our field, right, having a certain amount of experience and having applied a certain amount of having created some sort of outcomes, but then also stepping back and recognizing that our prototypes aren't precious. We don't have to be attached to our own ideas. And really, when we're talking about solving complex problems, like all of our problems are, it takes the creative capacity of everyone around us. Again, going back to that idea that I hope might spread around here, which is that there are no heroes. We're the heroes. We're all collectively the heroes, right? So just wanted to get us into that space of thinking how we as individuals respond to change. There's a level of self-awareness here that we want to be able to keep in mind. And then part of this as well, creating that psychological safety. I know Garan referred to psychological safety quite a few times yesterday on our teams that have been scientifically proven to create more effective teams. It's not the number of PhDs that you have on the team. It's not the number of years of experience that might be on a team. It is, do the team members have the safety to be creative and share their big ideas, to make mistakes, to learn from their failure, to be the imperfect humans that we are, right? So I wanted to share this, these active listening skills here, because I think that these are really important, thank you, Dimas, not just to how we interact with teams, how we interact with our teammates, but also just good life skills. Being attentive, asking open-ended questions, asking probing questions, requesting clarification when we don't understand, right? Because again, especially here, we're communicating across many different cultures and many different contexts. So we want to make sure that we're understanding each other. Paraphrasing to allow folks to know that they've been heard, right? My friend Garan here, he likes to ask me questions that have several questions embedded in them and also lots of statements. So when he does that, I have to okay, Garan, I think what you're asking me is this, right? And that's how we work together and create understanding, right?
You're a good coach.
Being attuned to and reflecting feelings, this is also important to what Dimas was saying about critical thinking begins with observation. So someone might be saying that they feel a certain way, but their body language, how they're acting, might give us a different indication, right? So and we can do this even in our virtual reality, even in these little boxes. It's a little bit harder, but you know, if I were looking away, if we were, you know, you can see that I'm on my phone, just like checking all my birthday messages now. Just kidding. No, it's still not appropriate time to be texting me on my side of the world. But those are the kind of cues that we want to pick up on. So when I put you in your breakout rooms, you're going to pick up, these are the types of things I want you to pay attention to. And also my co-facilitators, please let me know when we're ready for a break, because I'm just going to keep on rolling through because we have a lot to do in very little time. Also, in sharing human-centered design, if any needs come up and people need to do what they have to do, please do. So, we talked a little bit about active listening, being attentive, showing that you're paying attention. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper and talk about empathic listening. So you can see this slide here, but I'm gonna go back to talking to you as humans. There's a thing that we do when we communicate where most of the time when we communicate or have a conversation, we're thinking about what our response is going to be, right? Does that sound about right? One of the reasons that we do that is because empathy is hardwired into who we are. We have mirror neurons in our brains, and those mirror neurons pick up on things. For example, if there was a spider crawling on Ernest right now, it might make me twinge a little bit, right? Like just right there on his face, across his forehead, I'd be like, ugh, that's actually, hi Ernest. That's actually our mirror neurons responding to each other. So when we communicate, we are trying to find points of connection, right? I'll listen to a story that Demas shares, and I'm looking for a point of connection with his story. I'm thinking to myself, oh, I've had a similar experience in perhaps a different context. I see Nadika says, except when it comes to psychopaths, right? Okay, we won't go down that road quite yet, but thank you for bringing that up. We practice empathic listening. Does anybody here do meditation? Have you ever tried any kind of meditation? I feel like I'm frozen or delayed a little bit. Okay, Demas and Goran. So when we meditate, we're trying to train our brains to do something different, right? So yesterday I had you sign your names and I had you sign it with 2 different hands, right? To get us into the habit of doing something different. So when you listen empathically, what you're doing is you're suspending that natural through civil war, for example. Although if you've seen anything about my country in the news these days, that could be approaching, who knows, right? But when I am talking to someone who has lived through a different context, I want to suspend my tendency to filter what they're saying through the lens of my own experience, because I want to understand how they are experiencing a problem, right? So that I can know how I might help to solve that problem. Let's see, I am looking through okay, Melena does yoga, great. Nothing better than some music. This because are many good leaders with psychopathic traits. All right, we won't get into that. And Demas, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're sharing here?
Yes, you asked why we should really, I think empathetic listening is trying not to filter what you're hearing through your own mindset. It's an effort. Yes. I don't think it's 100% possible because we do have our own mindset.
me on some basic fundamentals of coaching, because within the coaching you are actually being alerted that you have to remain within the neutral position, to actively listen, to pose powerful questions in order to lead the person or team, if it's group coaching, to obtain multiple perspectives in order to reach the best possible option for them in order to resolve the problem or reach solutions. So Tamara Dimitrievich here present with us, she is also a very experienced coach. Maybe she can add some comment on this in case, but that's something that I have passed. I went through this Academy of Coaching and I really felt encouraged, and I do it, and it's worth of trying.
All right, thank you, Goran. And when I put everyone into the breakout rooms, this is what I'm going to invite you to do. Again, the step up and step back, the resisting your urge to formulate a response, resisting your urge to filter what is being shared with you through the lens of your own experience. And one of the benefits here is that we can record accurate data, right? Because again, when I talk about data, I'm talking about the needs and insights that we learn from our colleagues, from the people that we're serving, when we truly work to understand the problem they're experiencing from their perspective. It allows us to diagnose before we prescribe. How many of you have had the experience of maybe having a hard day at work, coming home and wanting to tell someone about it, and someone is trying to solve your problem instead of just listening to you? Has that ever happened? Yeah. Sometimes if you give people the space to just talk out their problem, then they can often talk out their own solution, because no one is going to know better how to solve their problem. Okay, and then I'm going to quickly talk about facilitating change, because once you get into your groups, which we'll take a short break before we do that, one of you is going to be the facilitator. You'll all have an opportunity to facilitate, but to truly facilitate change, this is the art of leading people through processes towards agreed upon objectives in a manner that encourages participation, ownership, and creativity by all those involved. Encouraging participation, ownership, and creativity by all of those involved. That sounds like change leadership to me. This allows us to plan, guide, and manage a group. You're witnessing a smaller version of this, even in this experience that we're having together. And then we can lower resistance towards outcomes because people will have that ownership, creativity, and participation. So facilitation is a big part of this. Facilitation even in what you're experiencing with us now, but also in terms of how you move a group through a proposed change. Good facilitation promotes ownership and shared understanding, encourages creative ideas and equal participation, right? Because even in this space, we're creating these learning agreements together. We're agreeing that we are going to make the space for our colleagues, for our roommates in our breakout rooms to really let their big creative ideas come out. We create structure and we stick to time. There's so many strategy meetings that I see that are led by the boss or the manager without actually valuing the unique experience of the people that they are leading. And then we acknowledge the time that people take to participate, right? So thanking people for being present, acknowledging that there's several things going on at any moment in time, especially given that these days. And these are the three, these are some ingredients for this type of work. We have preparation and application, we have theory and practice, and most importantly, not most importantly, but of equal importance is empathy and humility. So when we take these and we combine them together, then we can really be helping to facilitate change. So I'm going to give us a 10-minute break, right, Tam? And what you can do, I did have a slide that was asking about your own approaches to self-care, because we can't forget ourselves in this. I know we already had some folks share that some of us do yoga, some of us do meditation. So if you would like to share your approaches to self-care in the chat, I'd love for you to do that. And we'll come back at, the time will be, someone help me out with the time difference here. "10 minutes from now, can we handle that?
At 11, 15 minutes, please.
You need 15 minutes, Vladan?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, we'll do that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying your needs.
Thank you, Judy.
Yes. So now what I will do is share my screen and put on a little bit of music for us, because that is my self-care. All right, people are coming back. That's good. We lost some folks here and there, but I think that we're going to move through these exercises. So let's see here. 6 rooms. All right, we'll wait just a moment for some folks to come back. If you are back from break, please try to either turn on your video, thank you to Hannah, or hello, type in the chat so that I know that we're ready to go. Okay, so I have some randomly assigned rooms. Actually, I'm going to change this. So there we go. Who here likes to teleport? That's what I call moving into breakout rooms. We just bend the space-time continuum. Thank you, Tam. And we go elsewhere. So really quickly, I know not everyone is back, but we have to keep moving. So we are going to practice some of the human-centered design process together in our breakout rooms. And what this will look like is I'm going to put you into rooms, and then I want you to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about a challenge that you or your organization are experiencing, most likely under the big umbrella of responding to COVID. But I want to give you about 2 minutes each to share. Okay, hi, I'm Judy. One of my greatest challenges in dealing with COVID has been to recreate engaging learning experiences in the new virtual environment, right? And then I might pass it over to someone else in the room. And after you do that, I want you to have a little conversation, and I want you to choose which of the challenges that you heard that you want to bring into the design process today. Does that make sense? So you'll have a little conversation, introduce yourself, talk about your challenge, and then as a team, as a group, because this will be your team for the next 90 minutes, you will pick which challenge you want to focus on. Okay, so you will share your design challenge, as a team discuss the problems, and then identify some themes right? So we'll practice our empathic listening, but we also want to see where there might be parts of connection. We'll identify one problem that we would like to address through human-centered design, and then we'll take on some different team roles. Is that clear? First, we'll just come together, we'll talk about our problem, right? Talk about the challenge, and then we'll decide as a team. I'm gonna give us maybe 8 minutes total to do that. This is rapid ideation and prototyping. Some of my co-facilitators, you will automatically be put into breakout rooms. You're welcome to join and participate, or you're welcome to continue to hold the space with me. But I will open all the rooms. I will come visit you. That's one of my favorite things about this, is that I can move around and make sure that folks are on task. So if you got your invitation to move to your room, go. All right, so you were able to pick which challenge you're going to work on. Whose is it? Tam?
Oh, Amina is gonna speak to ours.
Yes, awesome,
Yeah,
Amina.
We kind of faced the common challenge, like all four of us. So we decided to narrow it down to the productiveness of online meetings.
Okay.
So we're gonna just see how it is to transfer activities online. How are we gonna transfer activities of our organizations online? How do we conduct effective workshops? Because, you know, as they're all online, most people can be muted or not there. Like, we kind of identified the benefits, the pros and cons of online meetings, but like, since we're focusing on the problems here, we're gonna talk about this productiveness and how people are present, but like not really there.
Yeah, excellent.
Forming an analysis that is good. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Amina. So that means that by default, you are going to be the stakeholder. And what that means is I'm going to send you to another team, and they're going to interview you about that problem. Does that sound good? So welcome back, everybody. We already have team 1, which is Amina, Nicholas, Warda, and Tamarama. I'll just say that to distinguish between my two Tamaras. Yeah, we're good. And their challenge is productiveness of online meetings. Cool, we got one challenge. Yep, we can all resonate with that. All right, team 2, that was, excuse me? Oh, okay, team 2, or breakout room 2, we have Lirdy and Jenny, Milos, Rosie, Ronaldo, and Tam D. What's your challenge and who's going to represent it?
Jenny, where's Jenny?
Is Jenny here?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. So the challenge that we faced was the communication. Due to our position, we are a state agency for the delivery of public services. So the biggest challenge that we faced, and as a group, was the communication with citizens through the online channels that we have created during the COVID-19 pandemic, because they could not use clearly, not everybody could use those online channels, and not everybody had the facility or the technology tools to do so.
All right, awesome, Jenny. So you're going to be our stakeholder who's going to be interviewed by other teams.
Okay.
Cool? All right.
Yeah.
Let's give Jenny a little wave for being a stakeholder. Beautiful. Okay, team 3. And someone has some back, there we go, beautiful. Team 3, we have Dimas, Goran, Nadika, if I'm saying that right, Slaven, and Ernest. Who's going to represent the challenge, and just give us a quick overview?
Goran. No, Ernest, come on. Toto Coutinho from Monster, please.
We discussed, but we didn't have enough time to resolve this issue, this problem. So basically, we figure out that in my institution, we have one challenge. it's not the main challenge, but it's a huge challenge because we have so many users that we will make easier this process of their work and applying for digitalization of the process of distribution bilateral transport permits to freight companies. To understand this problem, we have to explain that we have more than 3,800 drivers, between 700 license for transport of goods through the countries of Europe. So basically, we want to digitalize this process for applying and getting bilateral transport permits for the cargo companies. In this period of COVID pandemic, we have a huge problem with these users, these private companies, because they try to get allowed to get permits to transport the goods through the countries, Europe countries and other countries in the region, and they had to come to ministry to apply with a huge documentation. For example, with a list of their drivers, driving copy of their driving licenses, document that shows that they pay the tax to the state administration, and a lot of other documentation. So in this process of digitalization of the process of distribution bilateral transport permits for the freight cargo companies, it will be much easier for them if they can apply online for these permits. So basically, our issue is how to make this service digitalized.
How to digitize that particular service, right?
Yes.
Okay, don't tell me any more about it. We're going high level, and then we're going to dig deep into that challenge in the next hour. Does that sound good, Ernest?
Okay.
And you will be the stakeholder for your group. Let's give Ernest a wave for being a stakeholder. And then we have one more team. Tahana, Anna, Emma, Vladan, and then is it Eni? Is that how I say your name?
Yeah, it's Eni. Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. So share your challenge, team. Who's going to represent it?
The girls.
Eni? Okay, I guess I'm on. Okay. So, oh, my camera is stuck, no? I look so sad in the face. Okay, no. Okay.
There you are.
Yeah. So the problem that I had was maybe a little bit too specific, and we didn't really get the chance to actually decide on what to represent. So maybe I will take the liberty of going with something that would affect us all. And that is the latency of the replies of the interinstitutional communication. Basically, we all struggle to get information from other institutions because of reasons such as overworking, understaffing, or protocols that maybe these specific information cannot be given like digitally because of some certification requirements, so that maybe it's not electronically signed and that it should be given by hand. And I think all institutions of the region have this problem, maybe not only the region, I mean, this happens everywhere. But basically, yeah, how to better have, how to have a better communication between institutions so that we wouldn't be on a stalemate when it comes to actually finishing the job, which might not be such long term in time-wise, basically. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Eni. Give Eni a wave. So our fourth is, we're going to call this interinstitutional communication. Okay, so what we've done now is we've come up with 4 different challenges that we're going to workshop together. We have online meetings, or the productiveness of online meetings. We have communication through online channels, digitizing a process for transporting goods. Ernest, I know that I took a lot of that and I made it very high level, so you will have to just work with the team on explaining exactly what that problem looks like. And then we have interinstitutional communication. So not surprisingly, a lot of challenges around communication. So what we're going to do is, within our teams, so we already have our stakeholders, okay? So for team 1, we have Amina. For team 2, we have Jenny. For team 3, we have Ernest. And for team 4, we have Annie. And what that means is they will be interviewed by the other teams, okay? I need those of you who are left in the team to take on some different roles. I need someone who can be the facilitator, or someone who can hold the space and make sure that we're on task. I need someone who will ask questions of our stakeholder, who's going to be the main interviewer. I need a note taker who's going to document responses to questions. And I need observers. So anyone who doesn't take on those roles, you will be the observer. And what you will do is just pay attention to the environment, pay attention to the nonverbal cues that our stakeholder is sharing about their problems. Thank you for that, Ernest. Let's see, Ernest just sent this to me. I'm going to go ahead and put it here so that everyone can see. Vladan is saying it would be interesting to finish the Serbian challenge from last year. We don't have the luxury of time and space, but maybe we can do that as part of our learning community moving forward. Vladan. Is this all clear to you so far? And what we're going to do after we take on these roles is we're going to send our stakeholders over, and we're going to come up with questions that we want to ask them. So we want to ask them questions about their productiveness of online meetings, about the streamlining or digitizing processes, about interinstitutional communication. And each of you will be assigned one of these challenges. Okay, so, okay, thanks, Tam. So what you're going to do is I'm going to put you back in those teams. You're going to decide which roles you want to take on. We have, again, a facilitator, someone who's going to ask questions of our stakeholder, the note takers, so you're going to document everything, and observers. So I'll put us back into our groups, we'll decide on our roles, and then we're going to come up with questions that we're going to ask our stakeholders. Does that sound good? Clear? Yes? Waves? Okay, putting you back in your rooms. And let's go. Hi.
Hello.
How did that go, Amina?
Well, I have to tell to Dimas and Goran. So now when we're done with the interview, my colleague just told me, you were really good. I'm so proud of you.
That's great. How did it feel to be
perfect.
a stakeholder?
Well, it was nice. I mean, they asked me questions. I start thinking of, like, as Goran asked me, like, how do I see myself in 6 months? Like, is it going to be online? How are we going to do it? Like, these questions certainly are very important to address.
Good. And Dimas, how did we do?
I think very well. One of the advantages of the challenge Amina has is that it's a challenge we all share in different ways, but we all share it. Our own stakeholder in the original meeting had a more technical challenge, which has to do with the transport of goods and digitalization. So it's a little bit easier to identify with what Amina's pain points are and what she wishes to achieve and what the difficulties are. But yeah, I was happy with the conversation.
All right. So to practice my active listening, what I just heard from Demis was that there was a connection with the stakeholders challenge, that there was a shared experience, right? And Amina, you shared that being asked those questions made you realize that those are questions you should be thinking about. Is that correct? Did I get it right? Anything to add reflection-wise from this group?
Observer.
Observer? Find your voice.
Unmute. Now it's unmute.
Sorry, I took all the notes. So I was observer, note taker, and I basically agree with this type of interaction. And I personally think that this type of interaction should be applied everywhere. And it could be a way for people to resolve communication noise.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for taking on
I
multiple
would just
roles.
add one observation on Amina's performance. I think really it's a good luck that she is a part of public administration of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and that they actually attracted a young and very prosperous and ambitious lady. So thinking out of the box is something that she's bringing inside the system, and it's very much appreciated that public administration in the region recognizes this importance by having the young and talented people. And so congrats, and I really...
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, we got thumbs up, we got some waves. We're all excited about that. Okay, beautiful. Let me hear from team one, Nicola's team. Nicola, Tamra, we're just sharing general reflections. What you learned.
I was a note taker, so I will start and then my teammates can fill me in.
Perfect.
So here are some of the problems that we uncovered. There's two big buckets. One is communication bucket. There is an ability to get information that is needed within specific timeline. There's lack of awareness and equal information between people. Not everyone is on the same page most of the times. No clear lines on who is doing what and what needs to be done. Some people just take on whatever needs to get done, but that's also challenging. Then there is challenge with conditions in which teams operate. There's no stable internet connection in their workplace. Institutions can't afford to equip them with amenities. And there's a lot of workload, a lot of things to do, but most of the teams are understaffed.
Tamarama, thank you for sharing the components of the challenge. That's very important. I'm also curious just about the experience. Let's ask Eni, how did it feel to be interviewed about a particular challenge you're experiencing?
Well, it was nice because it also made me kind of think introspectively, but at the same time it was challenging because I've been working in this institution for 3 months. So maybe I didn't know all the problems so that I could maybe pick the most relevant one, but I just kind of figured out from my experience.
All right, good. Nicola, anything to add about how that was? What role did you play?
I was an interviewer. I asked so many different questions. At the end, it was very good to understand that there is no system where everyone can communicate and understand each one and track actually at the end.
All right, thank you, interviewer, very good. Let's see, so my team, let's hear from Ernest. How was, you basically got interviewed twice. Yes. By your team and by the other team. How is that for you in talking about your challenge?
When Demis asked me,
first
it
I
was
want to
very
ask,
funny,
do you feel famous? Do you feel famous now, Ernest?
No.
No? Two times interviewed.
No.
Almost like paparazzi are chasing you.
No. When Demis was asked me some questions, it was funny, but when my colleague Milos asked me so many questions, I felt like I'm guilty for this issue, this problem, Who is in charge? Who should resolve this problem? Where is the funds? So many questions, and also I come up with some conclusions when he asked me some things, you know.
You came up with some conclusions.
It was very useful, you know. His questions were very useful for me, you know, to come up with some conclusions that basically when we didn't think about some human capacities, you know, the basic things in this issue, you know.
All right, great. And Milos, how was that for you?
Hello. For me, it was great. I really didn't want to be like it was an interrogation room, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for me it was really good because I mean most of our team didn't know anything about the topic basically. So it was important for us to ask right questions, you know, to understand it. So this is why maybe it felt like, you know, we are asking too much or details, but the details were important because they matter here. It's really complex and technical. So for me, and Ernest was very insightful, very patient, and very elaborate in providing answers. I think that the note taker also agrees. So all in all, very good. I really like it.
Okay, so generally we don't want our stakeholder to feel interrogated or feel like it's their fault. So next time we'll wrap it in a little more empathy. Just kidding. It seems like you got to some really good conclusions there despite the approach. Rosie, I see your hand.
Yes, please. I would like to say something about Milos and Ernest. Their communication was very productive, and I think that Milos shown to be a great interviewer because he was very polite when interrupting Ernest, and politeness did the reaction from Ernest. He was explaining with a little bit more, you know, simple words and so, and he was the good timekeeper. In sense of interrupting Ernest in the sense of keeping time that we were allowed to do this. When he was not quite in the line with the answer, he was doing a recap. So did he understand what Ernest was saying? So this was this is in fact an exercise of active listening. And he was, because we listed a lot of questions, but he was leading the communication and the interview by rearranging the questions in the order that were just like a conclusion from the previous question, and very wisely follow up of the questions. Bravo, Milos and Ernest.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rosie. I take it you were our observer. No?
Facilitator, but there was no need of facilitating, in fact.
Yes. All right. Very good. Thank you. And then finally, I want to hear from Jenny, our other stakeholder who was interviewed. How was your experience in chatting with, who were you with? Tahana? Yep.
Yes, you can tell the names. I need to see exactly their names, actually. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a great experience actually. They had all the questions structured, so I was really willing to answer them because everything was structured and they were really polite.
Great. Did it help you learn a little bit more about the challenge you were presenting or think about it in a new way?
Yes, of course, and they actually talked about possible solutions. So that was a good help there.
All right. I thought I heard a little bit of that when I popped in to do my breakout room lurking that I get to do as the host. Thank you, Slaven, for allowing me to do that. At this point in the process, we do not actually want to jump to conclusions, right, or solutions. I know that my friend Vladan really likes to come up with solutions and help share solutions, and we're still at the phase within the process where we're really breaking down the problem. So any reflection, Tahana, anything to share from where you were?
I was quite happy with the group, and also many thanks to Emma. There you are, Emma. So maybe I would popcorn to you, Emma, to hear your voice. How was your experience, and what are you taking from this session?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Emma.
So I really liked how Jenny approached our questions, and for like 2 questions she covered them in the first answer. So what I got from this was that we had really good teamwork, and we were missing one person, but we still managed to do it. And as for Jenny's approach, and considering on what they're doing, I think she's the right person to do it. Do you want me to go through what we got from the challenge?
I think that's okay for now. I do want to move us back into our groups. Emma, it's so nice to hear your voice, and thank you to Hannah for practicing the step up, step back. Even as a facilitator, I have to remind myself to be engaging with folks who might not be as engaged, so thank you. We have just about 20 minutes remaining, so I do want to quickly take us through getting back into our groups. What we'll want to do now is share the data that we've collected with our team member who's going to be our stakeholder who comes back. And we're going to try and share the challenge in 1 sentence. So Jenny needs this because of this, right? And we'll take that sentence, and then as a team, we want to come up with some ideas for how we might address that challenge. And this is the ideation phase. Usually we have post-it notes, we're able to sketch. I do want to encourage you to tap into the creative side of your brain and try to sketch some ideas. This is not about evaluating our ideas. Remember that we asked to suspend judgment. So here's what this usually looks like with lots of post-its and groupings. Tamara and I do this so often. We are doing it digitally now as well. But this is just, I just want you to take some, and here's my notes so that you can see how I organize this as a very visual person. I would love for you to try to come up with some solutions to that 1 sentence challenge and sharing those solutions by sketching. We won't have enough time to actually build something together, and it's kind of difficult for us to do that while we are apart. But in the next few minutes, we are going to share the challenge in 1 sentence with our teammate who's coming back from being interviewed, and then sketch some ideas and share those with each other. We'll have 10 minutes to do that, and then when you come back, the facilitator will help choose which idea or which proposed prototype might they want to share to meet the particular challenge for the stakeholder. Does that make sense? Okay, so I need just 1 moment to move folks back. So Annie is going back to 4. Jenny and Jenny. Jenny is going back to room 2. And then Ernest, our famous Ernest, is going back to room 3. And then finally we have, who did I not move yet? Amina? Oh. Ernest, got you. And yes, I need to find Amina. All right. Bear with me because teleportation is a little tricky.
Judy, I have a clarification question, if I may ask it.
Sure, Demis.
We are doing all this for the stakeholder who is back in our room, not the one we were working about before. So we will do this for the stakeholder who is there. Okay.
Yes, you will do this for Amina. You're still working on Amina's.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So Ernest should not be with us.
Ernest should be with you because he's back on your team.
But he's a stakeholder too.
That's right, but your team interviewed him.
No.
And Amina, right?
Yeah, so who do we work for? Amina?
You work for Amina.
We work for Amina. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. Yep. Thank you, Demis. Appreciate that clarification. Is everyone able to move? Or are we having some breakout room challenges again?
We did great. We ended up pulling off amazing ideation in just 1 minute. After we realized we not only need to come up with the how might we speak, but also ideate. So then we did a flash solution.
Very productive.
Working within our constraints, right? Turns out this is hard to do in a short amount of time. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have precious little time remaining together. So in our last few minutes, I would like to invite the facilitator from each group to share the 1-sentence challenge and one idea that you came up with to meet the challenge. So team 1, who's our facilitator? Is that you, Tamara?
I think Nicola is gonna speak for us.
I will speak even if that I was not a facilitator. We share what we think and how to solve the problem. Actually, the how may we question is how may we create a way to facilitate digital communication, remote collaboration, and ensure institutional memory. So the solution for this is, for example, a very good connection between Slack and G Drive, or maybe use the Microsoft platform, for example, Teams and SharePoint.
Okay, so integrating different systems. All right, let's do a little wave for team 1. Who is our facilitator from team 2?
I'm the one, but I will drop the
Sorry, Goran, you're team 3.
Oh,
you're team 3, breakout room 3. Team 2 is Ronaldo, Miloš, Rosie. Oh, it's Rosie, right?
I think that Miloš will explain, and I'm trying to sketch something.
All right, Miloš. Okay, take your time. Goran, why don't you share what you were going to share from Team 3?
Actually, we had a very fruitful discussion. Unfortunately, the time limited us. Demis have had so many good ideas, and Nadica reported back and gave us again food for thoughts. So Ernest also get. So the major statement is how to engage the most productively wider target audiences. And now I would invite Demis to actually present his creative masterpiece in this very limited time.
Oh, okay. It's not a creative masterpiece, but thank you, Goran. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, for some reason there I am. I can see you. Thank you. Yes, I guess the idea that Goran chose is before the meeting, have a pre-meeting survey for everybody and ask them 4 or 5 questions, perhaps including the question of how do you think you can best contribute to the success of this meeting, perhaps. But it doesn't have to be that deep, and ask all participants to take the survey, give you an answer, and open the survey with saying, well, this is how our meeting is all about. That's, I guess, the key idea. We have others too.
And what is that, Demis? What is that you just described?
It is a way of engaging a wider audience in online meetings, which was the challenge that Emina had. Emina said, in our small meetings, it's fine, we know each other. In the wider meetings, it's harder to keep them engaged. So this is one way of engaging. There are many others.
It sounds to me like that's human-centered design. Thank you, Team 3. Let's give some waves there.
Thank you, Emina.
Let's go back to Team 2. Milos? Yep.
Okay, so
there. Ooh. Okay, there's a sketch that Rosie's sharing.
Okay, Milos, can I explain a little bit so you can follow me? So firstly, there should be an ex officio exchange of documents between the institutions. Next, there is some kind of subsidiaries for electronic signatures for the transporters at the period of the COVID. Then cutting red tape in a legal sense, so we don't have so much documents that are needed. Then we should also have, or they should also have some platform for electronic submission of the requests for licenses. And there should be, at the end, some kind of a breaking out the organizational setups in order to establish a new ones. So the base is broken, so their organization should be broken at the end. And this is these are the 5 things that at least should be met in order to make some changes. And now I give floor to Milos. Milos.
Well, this is about it. When we discussed it, it revolved around the same thing as for every service nowadays, you know? So in that sense, it's a bit generic, but at the same time, it has some specificity. So you have to cut the red tape. You have to introduce like a digital platform so all the stakeholders within the administration can cooperate and communicate smoothly. You have to reduce cost, you know, financial, transactional cost of users, whatever, when delivering services. And you will be good to go and better off maybe during the extraordinary times. This is about it. I just wanted to say that we said this can be copied to another, you know, example of service, but still it's all are valid arguments.
Okay, thank you, Team 3, Team 2. And now I know that we are at time. I do want to give Team 4 a chance to just share. Who is our facilitator from Team 4?
Hello, I'm the facilitator from Team 4. And I saw Annie smiling, so I think the sketch is also ready. We are going to share the buzzwords that we had in this sharing of ideas. So this is for sure proactive communication coming from the institution to the citizens and to the other users. So in order to push to proactively provide information in order to be less overburdened with the expectations which are not published yet. So this could be one thing. The other thing would be to standardize also the workflows. The standardization even can mean to make them more fluid. It doesn't have to be, nobody has to always stick actually to the one assignment, or I don't know how many assignments are there. And then also to restructure the tasks, especially during a crisis time. So in order to have an equal workload for public servant citizens, which are also dealing with public, and who have actually to put the citizens in first place, they actually need a backup from the other public servants, which to crisis time especially maybe are not having such a big overload of work. So to support each other in order to be more proactive and to be equally loaded with work. Annie, do we have a sketch?
Yes. As you all might know, the old Microsoft Word task helper, it was that little paper pin thing. I did that, and it says, "Ah, yes, interoperability."
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So we're a few minutes over. Thank you for spending a little bit more of your day with me.